Winds are changing. Light will be dark, and then dark will be light again. Everything will be seen, and then everything will be unseen. You will see me when I move. You will see me when I tell you what to do. I will be found in the dark. Do not fear. I am love to the seen, and I am love to the unseen. I heard these words tonight as I was preparing for bed, and what happened was that it was in my ear, and when I listened into my ear, it was the sound of wind that drew me in to my ear. And so I stopped everything and listened and wrote these words down. The clock was on 01:04:41 when I paused there. I'm going to share what I unpacked, and only slightly, I believe, because I feel that these words will land very deeply for each person that they resonate with. But I took a moment to consider how I feel about it, and I feel like I have a better understanding of why I receive words like this. There was a big sense in here of words for seekers. And what I'd been asking myself was, just yesterday I was immersed in love. And today I felt like, I feel steady, I feel balanced. And so to receive words like this can make one feel like perhaps I'm on a roller coaster here. But you'll see where the words speak to the concept of seeking and finding. And that's the thing, and there was a sense that this isn't for everyone. And I believe that's why I sometimes get that somewhat disclaimer that this is not for everyone. It's for seekers. There are individuals that find a balance in their spirituality, and they ride that balance. And while I welcome balance, I'm starting to accept that my form, and for some of us, my form of finding and receiving balance is seeking God. And that means that there are days where I feel distanced, and there are days where I feel like I'm in His palm. And I understand that this is a topic of faith, but daily energy shifts. In this case, with these words, I don't receive them as a warning, and I completely understand how they can land as a warning. But I'm actually receiving them as an invitation. I'm finding myself flipping my script on how one moves deeper into God. And there's something I'm understanding here around the requirement of darkness, the requirement of the unseen in order to find the light. And I have been getting to know myself and realizing that there are days of deep joy, there are days of deep pain, but I definitely feel that pain has a purpose, and I come out of it a better person every single time. I'm also able to reap the goodness of the joy to a much deeper extent that I wouldn't have an understanding of if I hadn't gone that deep. And another thing that linked to that I'm learning about myself is, if I was actually asked whether I want to or not have a deeper relationship with God than I already do, I would say yes every time. And I believe this is because of the infinity of God, that there will not be a day where I feel I have arrived, because there will always be more. And perhaps this is the only thing in life where more is better. More, more, more. Don't stop. And so with this, I'm accepting and embracing the darkness and the light. What I did was that I copied the words across, and I've written notes in between, screenshots, that kind of thing, just to walk with you through these interpretations that I've found. Winds are changing. It says here that the metaphysical meaning of wind, life currents that come from within and surround the whole being, the executive power of mind clearing the way to higher states of consciousness. And so here, what wind is speaking to is that we are being brought into higher states of consciousness. And there's something further down that kind of touches on the need to move through darkness to access these. Before I move on to more wind symbolism, there's something else I want to say, and that's that there are so many prophecies out there, and there's a specific group of them that have been quite prevalent of late, that tend to speak as though everyone will experience this event at the same time, together, the whole world, which then brings people into this state of paranoia, fear, rushing to make things right. You know what I'm talking about if you're listening this far. And that's more clarity I'm receiving tonight is, and I don't want to call anyone's anything in misinterpretation or anything, because these are just words out of my mouth. These are not your truth. But these events, these prophecies that are spoken of, I really believe, I'll say it, even when they speak of the 3 days of darkness, this is an internal experience. And I don't believe it is limited to one date as regarded by humanity. A date that no one has pinned successfully. We'd only know once it's happened. It could very well be now. But that's not to say that these days will not play out again. And that's not to say that these 3 days are referring to 3 multiplied by 24-hour periods. And so that's something to think about, even when one considers concepts like the return of Christ and all of that. for me, I felt like I really, Christ consciousness has been a major part of my journey, but that's not to say that it's not one I'm going to revisit. Because again, I feel very different now to how I did then. I'm not perfect. I'm imperfect. Well, I'm perfect, but you know what I mean? And so these lessons are always alive for us. They don't have an expiry date. And so if one can find truth in them, that truth can be turned into wisdom that can then be applied at any time as personally needed. And so this I take as preparation and armor for the deepening that I'm about to experience. That was 11:00 on the clock. What does the wind symbolize? The wind represents nature's uncontrolled and raw force. The wind god represents perseverance and power. Weaklings, both mentally and physically, are carried away by the wind's enormous strength. Only those with strong brains and hearts make it through life's trials. When I think about what makes a strong brain or a strong heart, I remember that a strong brain is not one that can think a lot and think well. It is one that can think as little as possible. And a strong heart would be one that can stay as open as possible. And this takes me back to a video I posted a while back on what to do when things around us become chaotic. I hope I remember. I'm going to, and I had 12:12 when I said that, I'm going to pin it in the description and the pinned comment. And it's essentially instructions for grounding for a powerful person, so that that powerful person does not misdirect their fear and spread it. Just because of their power, it's really needed that when things get chaotic, for a powerful person to choose peace, because then that peace can spread and that clarity can spread. What does the wind symbolize in mythology? In ancient Greece, the winds were personified as four deities, collectively called the Anemoi. Please excuse my pronunciation. These gods kept ships sailing, provided rain for crops, and oversaw the transition of seasons. For the Greeks, the Anemoi were literally the wind beneath their sails. This makes me think about when I see ships sailing, it speaks to me about what one is building, whether that's your life or a craft or whatever it is that you do or practice, the reasons you work to keep your relationship with God and your channel open, whatever that is to you. Provided rain for crops. This is what we need to make everything grow, whether that's ourselves again or the things that we work on. And oversaw the transition of seasons. So this to me is like 14:14. The season is shifting. And it's not just that the season is shifting, it's that, and when I say the seasons, I mean the season of life. A season of life is shifting. And this is more around, we actually have a need for the seasons to change. And so here there's gratitude to know that this is one of the ways that wind serves us. So yes, it can make things feel unstable, but it says here that weaklings also in a physical sense, which speaks to what I said yesterday, is that that's when you get to be grateful for the vessel that you're in, because your vessel is dense enough to not get blown away by the wind. And so you've got to go inside of it. And it says the Anemoi were literally the wind beneath their sails. And, that is exactly what then would assist a ship or a craft to move forward, would be the wind. And this makes me think about, I think it's a song, the wind beneath my wings takes me to birds. And even a bird, when winds are strong, the bird would find cover. So this animal that can soar and fetch messages from heaven, even it needs to kind of take cover sometimes. I didn't tell you previously, but I had a bird visit me. This has never happened. It was last weekend. Not this one, the last one. I was sitting on the patio with my sister, and this bird came, and it wasn't a pigeon. I know pigeons tend to come very close. They're used to people, but this was like a garden bird. I've never seen one up this close, and unless I'm watching in the bird bath. And it came slowly right to my feet, sitting in my shadow. And it stayed there for a while. If I manage, I'll actually put it in the background of this video, if I manage. You can just check now. I would have put it by now if my phone allows me to transfer it. But it was just moving its beak. It wasn't tweeting or anything. It was just moving its beak. I had people tell me it was probably hungry, you should feed it, whatever. But by now, I spend so much time around birds. They've had many times to ask me to feed them. That's not what was happening. And what the bird basically told me is that it's bringing messages and singing them into my shadow. And I'm still sitting with these words, and something inside of me makes me feel like I feel like maybe I'm a bird, because my relationship with birds has completely shifted this year. Moving back to the words, light will be dark, and then dark will be light again. The metaphysical meaning of darkness is the ignorance of the sense man, the absence of truth or light in consciousness. Darkness represents undeveloped capacity. It is caused by lack of love. And so when I read these words, it's like, it feels like a flash of darkness and then the resumption of light. And I believe that what it's speaking to, as I feel into it, is, there's the visual aspect, and then like the internal relationship of God aspect. The visual one is like, for a period, we're going to see nothing. Like it will feel like a greater distance from what we know our relationship with God to feel like. And again, this is speaking to deepening the state of consciousness. So this is speaking to a new understanding, a deeper understanding that naturally, given that it will have new nuances, will feel different to what one knows. And so it will feel sudden because it will be fast, deep, and unexpected. and a sense that it's an event that's happened, outside of one's control. And then dark will be light again. And so that would be the transformation of all that is newly dark, made light. I hope actually that my words have made sense there. They make complete sense to me. And so this is not actually a stripping of everything. However, the perspective may not actually allow for one to feel like not everything was stripped because of the extent and the speed. The word speed made me stop there, and it says here, what is divine speed? Divine speed is speed granted to you by a higher power, in this case God. It is a power of accomplishment given to you over and above what your natural power can accomplish in a specific time frame. The giver of this power of accomplishment and supernatural speed is God. 2112. These are the times. These are the times. I also read that it says spiritual darkness is the state of a person who is living apart from God. The Old Testament book of Isaiah, in prophesying of the Messiah, speaks of a deep spiritual darkness that enveloped the people. And then I wrote, everything will be seen and then everything will be unseen, which speaks of sight. And it says here, seen, the word seen speaks of sight. It says here, of or relating to the transcendent sense, or to a reality beyond what is perceptible to the senses. And these senses we're speaking of here are physical senses, because we know that, we can see what is not seen. 222822. These numbers are wild tonight. 2233. Okay. Spiritual sight is the ability to see that which is unseen. It is possible that we see things with our eyes, but let's not be so limited by the word sight. The unseen realm encountered by faith ushered people through their natural limitations into a greater spiritual expectation. Spiritual intelligence invites us to consider reality beyond our natural realm, and therefore can sometimes seem counterintuitive or even contradictory to other ways of looking at things. When I consider the words, spiritual intelligence, on earth we hear about various types of intelligence, and when these go through an upgrade, there's a time for whatever hardware is being used to be switched off. And so I'm scared to say scientifically, but quite practically, this makes sense. And this speaks of a major upgrade, and it speaks to, a deep one. But again, when I look at this sort of, I don't want to say it, externally triggered, like shut down, it does make me feel like when you take your laptop or someone takes it and just holds the off button down to switch it off, and it's as if like the screen might have this weird thing like before it just goes out. You will see me when I move. You will see me when I tell you what to do. I will be found in the dark. Do not fear. I am love to the seen, and I am love to the unseen. 2444. These words I sat with, you will see me when I move, a little bit, and I played with the idea of God moving. and very quickly realized it's more around the moves that God makes, not moving God itself, but the changes, the shifts, which then takes one back to God moving. Because what is it that God moves? And these words here feel more like a reassurance that we will know what is happening when it happens, and we will find God within that. Naturally, maybe balance may be thrown off for a second. I mean, how else do you find balance but by knowing that you've lost it? Nobody's ever in perfect balance. You know, perhaps we might touch what perfect balance feels like for some time. I don't know. I am love to the seen and I am love to the unseen. For me, this is the ultimate, because it's a reminder again that there is no need to fear whether one is on the wrong side or not, because as soon as one recognizes that fear, one remembers that God is already there. So whether you're aware or not, whether you're a seeker or not, whether you feel lost or not, in darkness or not, these are the only words one actually, well, not my words, but I'm saying the idea that God is love and to all brings back that safety and peace. I'm going to leave it there, and with these last words that came to me just before I started this recording: hear me when I pray. Thanks be to God.